I'll call this meeting February 17th, 2015. I'm Councilman Reich. I'll chair the committee. We are joined by a full complement of the committee, including Councilmembers Yang, Glidden, Palmisano, Bender, and Gordon. And we have 8 items today, several consent items. I will go through those first. Any committee member can pull them for further discussion if they wish. Item 3, the first item on consent, which is the MPCA grant and commercial waste evaluation. And that's authorizing acceptance of the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency Environmental Assistance Grant in the amount of $26,567 to evaluate the approaches to increase the diversion of commercial, industrial, and multifamily waste, and directing the Division of Solid Waste and Recycling to perform tasks outlined in the grant agreement. That item we refer to Ways and Means Committee. Item 4 is a series of actions regarding the Hennepin-Lindale Corridor Street Reconstruction Project and Design Contract Amendment. It's approving a resolution designating a location for those improvements, receiving the cost estimate of $12 million, and directing the city engineer to prepare proposed special assessments for those properties in that public hearing to be held on June 9th, 2015. And then finally, authorize an increase in $240,450 to the engineering service agreement with Kimley Horn and Associates for a revised contract of $1,148,905 for preliminary and final design for the Hennepin-Lindale Corridor. No additional appropriation required. Referred to Ways and Means Committee. Item 5 is approving a resolution designating the location of the improvements for the proposed project at 31st Street East for its resurfacing project, and receive the cost estimate of $339,774, and directing the engineer to prepare special assessments for those benefited properties, and that public hearing would be held on April 21st, 2015. Item 6 is the 35W South Storm Tunnel Rehabilitation Cooperative Construction Agreement. Execute that agreement with the MnDOT for cost participation in that tunnel rehabilitation project. That'll be referred to Ways and Means. And item 7 is accepting a low bid of Hydromax USA LLC for an estimated expenditure of $559,871.90 for closed circuit inspection of the city sanitary sewer. This is referred to Ways and Means Committee as well. And then those are our consent items. Does anyone wish to pull them? Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to make a brief comment on item number 4.
Please do.
Thank you. This is a project that is mostly in Councilmember Goodman's ward, but she and I work together. It just brushes the tip of the 10th ward. So this is the big reconstruction of Hennepin and Lindale corridor. We were able to work with staff and a really incredible coalition of community groups and institutions to implement a lot of bicycle and pedestrian safety improvements in this reconstruction project. And I just wanted to thank staff for all of their work. They really went above and beyond here to really quickly pull together some changes to what had been planned to really respond to the community desire to see better bike and ped safety improvements here.
Thank you. Any further discussion? See none, I'll move all items on consent. Anyone wish to? Nope. See none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Dissenting nay. Those items carry. We can now go into the public hearing portion of the agenda, starting with public hearing number 1, which is the Penn East, McKinley areas, Girard and Humboldt Avenues North street resurfacing projects. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. Mike Kennedy will make the presentation about this project.
Good morning, Mr. Kennedy.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Mike Kennedy, I'm the Director of Transportation, Maintenance, and Repair for Public Works. We're here this morning for the public hearing regarding the 2015 resurfacing program on Penn East and McKinley areas, Girard and Humboldt Avenue North. On January 16th, 2015, the City Council designated the locations, streets, and improvements proposed to be made in the Penn East, and McKinley areas, as well as Girard and Humboldt Avenues North neighborhoods. The cost estimate for this project is $3,170,078 and is financed by net debt bonds and special assessments. The locations of the streets that are included in this project are shown on the overhead. The things to note are that the streets that are identified as part of the proposed North Minneapolis Greenway, as shown on the map in green, are excluded from this project and will not be resurfaced. The respective parcels will not be subject to assessments for the street resurfacing project. we will still continue to do our standard maintenance procedures on there as needed as well. Girard and Humboldt Avenue North are from 26th Avenue North to Lowry Avenue North, in addition to what is included in the Penn East area. Girard and Humboldt at these locations are local city streets and were last paved in 1969. The street resurfacing is a typical mill and overlay, as we've been doing for a number of years now. It's scheduled to begin in 2015, will be done by the city's workforce. At the neighborhood pre-public hearing meeting on February 10th, there were property owners that asked a question about the 3700 block of Oliver Avenue North, and asked why their block was included in the street resurfacing when it had been reconstructed in 2011. As it turns out, if you note on the map, 37th Avenue across the project was included in what was known as Flood Area Project 600D, known as the 37th Avenue North Greenway. Oliver Avenue North, as part of that project, was also reconstructed from 37th Avenue North to the properties addressed at 3738 and 3739 Oliver Avenue North, approximately 400 feet north of 37th. The Public Works staff recommends that this part of Oliver Avenue North be removed from the Penn East, and McKinley area street resurfacing project, and the proposed assessments for those properties abutting the reconstructed street be removed from the proposed special assessment roll. These property owners will not be assessed for this project. This will reduce the total proposed assessments by $18,925.90 from $2,400,859 to $2,381,933. The remaining segment of Oliver Avenue North to Dowling will be resurfaced as part of the project. So our recommendation today is to pass a resolution ordering the city engineer to proceed and do the work and adopt special assessments in the amount of $2,381,933.91 from this project area, and pass a resolution requesting the Board of Estimate and Taxation to authorize the city to issue and sell assessment bonds in the amount of $2,381,935 for this project. If there are any other questions, I can take them now, or we can go to the public hearing.
Any questions per the presentation? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing, and this is the public hearing for item 1, which is the projects as described. No one has signed in. Does anyone wish to speak? No one wishes to speak. I will therefore close the public hearing and move the item, noting the adjustments that staff highlighted in the presentation. Any further discussion? Councilmember Yang. Oh, you can, I'll open the public hearing, and yeah, you can just present yourself, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Darren McGowan. I'm a block leader at Jordan area community on the other side of Lowry. And I just got this information from one of my neighbors, and so I'm late in the game. And my concern, or what I'm interested in wondering, is why is the residents in this community being charged for this resurfacing on top of other projects? We just got hit at another meeting earlier or the end of last year for resurfacing of sidewalks. And so we're getting taxed for that too, as well as our property taxes being raised. And so we're getting hit every which way with all these different projects, and it's taxing us more and more for a property that's not going up. Does that make any sense?
Certainly does.
And so it's an overburden to a community that's already struggling financially. And so I'm looking through this, trying to get caught up. And then I got another question about, I think it's the Botno project that's coming down Penn. And so if we're going to resurface it, and then they're going to come in and provide new construction and put railways in on the road that we're just spending a couple $1 million resurfacing. So do that make sense?
Certainly does.
So it seems like we're throwing money at something that Botno is going to come in and reconstruct anyway.
On the second, oh yeah, I would just respond to your second question. The proposed preferred layout for Penn actually will go at the edge of the city and not down Penn Avenue. I know that was one of the options considered, but that's currently not on the table. I believe it'll brush past Theodorworth Park and then go up Olson Memorial Highway is the current proposal. And of course, that's a pending project that has not received all its funding.
It's
yet
still
either.
pending.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know that there were a couple community engagement meetings on what's going to happen with transportation going straight up Penn.
And then I believe Mr. Kennedy could give a quick briefing on our uniform assessment policy. If you have, unless you have other questions.
Just one more question is, how can I phrase it? What can we do as homeowners, as property owners to appeal this process of having to pay for this road? If you could speak to that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Certainly. Mr. Kennedy?
Mr. Chair, member of this committee, our resurfacing project was established in 2008, and the council approved the idea that we would assess for a portion of the work. Typically, these neighborhood projects are funded by a combination of net debt bonds and assessments. This is a common procedure across the city. All the different projects are assessed the same way. We develop a uniform assessment rate each year so that all the properties are paying the same rate within these different projects each year. But it is a common way for municipalities to fund these type of resurfacing projects.
And then in terms of appeal process, obviously we'll hold a public hearing here, but an additional process would probably be a court-related process, or do we have some internal administrative process for appeals?
This is the first step in the appeals process, is to appear before the public hearing. If you appear before the public hearing and aren't satisfied with the result of that, you can take this to district court. Is that correct? Yes, that would be the next step.
Thank you. Any further commentary? Please state your name and address.
I am Bridget Shepard, and I live at 3242 Colfax Avenue North, and I received the letter in the mail saying that I would be assessed $1,220. And let me say this, I'm not opposed to resurfacing and making things better in Minneapolis, but I am personally concerned about my safety. So I am afraid in my home, but I am paying for resurfacing of a street, and I am unprotected in my home. And I just feel like, when did infrastructure become more important than people? Last year, my home was shot up. I'm a single parent with 2 disabled children, and I'm getting ready to pay $1,220 to resurface the street, but I'm unsafe in my home. I don't understand that, and I just don't. I don't understand that. To me, if I'm going to pay something, and I'm willing to pay whatever my portion is, but I'm saying, could you at least make it safer while you're resurfacing? That's my question. Is I'm afraid of my home, and I'll have nice streets, but I'm scared to sleep at night.
Thank you. I don't know if we need to clarify that there's 2 different sources of funds. So it's not public safety dollars at the expense of infrastructure dollars. As a matter of fact, if Kennedy, you wanted to explain again where our sources are, the police, of course, and public safety related items come from the general fund. Perhaps you could illuminate the difference of the funding source here.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, yes, as I mentioned earlier, the source of revenue for these projects are through assessments, direct assessments to the property owners, as well as some net debt bond funding. The debt service on the net debt bond funding does come from property taxes, which also supports public safety as well. And this is a battle that you as a body wrestle with every year as to balance between public safety and infrastructure and all the other competing needs for the city's dollars.
And I imagine that we do communicate with the police department when we have projects of this scale. Our staff are out there, so in some senses there will be an increased public sector presence during the time of this project.
Yes, Mr. Chair. If we need the cooperation of the police, we will work with them, and they've always been very collaborative with us.
Thank you. Any further testimony? Any further testimony? See none, I will close the public hearing. And I will give the floor to Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to save my comments for just after this question of Mr. Kennedy. If Mr. Kennedy, can you answer this question with regards to this project mostly being in Ward 4? There are a couple of extensions that extend into Ward 5, and why was that the case?
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Yang, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, when you look at the map,
Yep.
it mostly covers Ward 4, except for a couple of streets, and those couple of streets, if I can pull it up real quick.
I think you may be talking about south of Lowry. We have
Right.
Girard and Humboldt as part of the project that extend down.
Right.
Those streets are, the main part of the project are the residential paving projects of Penn East, and McKinley. But we're in the neighborhood. These two streets also needed work. Just made sense to do it in conjunction with that for some economy of scale. We're not necessarily looking at ward boundaries when we do this. We're looking at the original paving project boundaries. That way we're treating similar pavements that were paved at similar times and keeping them on track with our pavement management program.
And I'm imagining Girard and Humboldt, their PCIs are pretty low then. That's why, we encompassed them with this project. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Yang, that's correct. PCI is one of the many factors that we look at when we do these, but, and I don't know what they are off the top, but I'm sure that they are in the general range that we typically do this work.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Chair, I have a few comments. On February, I think it was the 10th, when the meeting was, went to the community meeting, and it doesn't really cover much of Ward 5. Actually, it has only 2 streets, but these community meetings are always so difficult because residents come. A lot of them are unhappy about the assessments. In the case of resurfacing, it's about a quarter of the cost of full reconstruction. But nonetheless, any assessments are very difficult to just take in. And in this situation, one of the things that happened at that community meeting was that I think our staff misquoted the percentage that is going to be put in from the assessments and the percentage that's going to be put in from the city. And I wanted to clarify. At the meeting, the quote was that 98% was going to come from assessments and 2% from the city, and that's not right. When I just did my math just today, 75% are going to come from assessments, and 25% is going to come from the city. And so I just want to clarify that, just to not scare folks, because I agree. I think when community members come in and they look at a project like this, and 98% is coming from them, it seems unusual. I wouldn't put that out of the realm of possibilities, but I think that seems quite unusual. The other thing about this community meeting was that I think, generally speaking, sometimes community meetings are good in the sense that we get to really see on the streets what's is there. And in this situation, Mr. Davis and his family and a few other folks who live on or around 37th and Oliver, they did get a full reconstruction of that area, or pretty close to that area, about 3 or 4 years ago. And so in that situation, we were able to fix that situation. And I really want to commend our staff, especially Larry Matsumoto and Suzette Hermstead, for being at that community meeting and just taking the brunt of the community's angst, let's just say. And it's always difficult, but I think we're coming to a pretty good resolution on this. Certainly, assessments don't make anybody happy, and for the most part, I feel like I've seen resurfacing projects happen in Ward 5, and I know that at the beginning, folks are unhappy about the assessments, but once it's done, I will tell you, people love it and people appreciate it. And I think, generally speaking, most folks just kind of think, why didn't we have this done earlier? And so, I wanted to say those sorts of things, but most importantly, it's really important for us to help folks to understand why these projects are so important. And, in a situation like this where we're resurfacing, we're extending the life of the street for another 10 to 15 years, and that's really critical to how we, keep our infrastructure in place. And so I wanted to throw that out there. I'm very mindful of the gentleman who came up and spoke about the folks in Ward 5, especially the folks who live in Jordan, having to, essentially be double billed. In one instance, the sidewalks obviously just happened just this past year, and it happened to me as well, and got a pretty big tab for that. But then, this situation with being assessed for resurfacing, and I think it sucks, but it's a natural course of living in the city like this, and I think that we have payment plans and those sorts of things that can work out to at least make it a little bit better. I don't think it makes anybody happy, and if you have any questions, I would recommend speaking to Suzette, who's there, just to talk about what your options are. But yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you. I just wanted to express my appreciation for people coming in and speaking to this. This is always a tough issue. I'm not necessarily convinced that the uniform assessment is the right strategy and the way to fund street reconstruction. I think one way that I look at this, though, is as you're driving on all those other streets that have been reconstructed and resurfaces and it's going nicely for you, keep in mind that when in Minneapolis, those people invested and helped pay for that we're all using and sharing, and this is just kind of the way that it's worked out. I'm not saying that I'm ready to tackle the new funding scheme either, because I think that would be an enormous challenge to figure out how we're actually going to do that and pay for our roads, and uniform assessment seems to be the best option that we have here. I think it is really important, though, that people come in and tell us what they think and what their views are of this. I really appreciate hearing the public safety concerns. We've actually increase the police budget. Not that the police are necessarily going to be the solution for all these concerns, but we've increased their budget more than any other department just this year. I think we're trying to address that, and we're trying to drill down on that. The other thing I wanted to maybe emphasize is that there is a deferment option, especially to block club leaders. Council passed a resolution several years ago. So if somebody is, it's a homestead property and they're over 65 years or they're retired due to a permanent and total disability, and if it's a hardship to make the payments, there is a deferment option. And I think it's important that people are aware of that and they can explore that. What that means is the money will eventually be collected, but it could be over a longer period of time. And I think people should be aware of that, because sometimes it really hits somebody particularly hard. Of course, if you're, I'm not suggesting that either of the people who testified right here fit any of those categories, but that's something to keep in mind.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I will move item 1. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Dissenting name. That item carries. And yes, there is staff here that folks can talk with, as Councilmember Gordon had pointed out. So now we move to the second public hearing of the day. Item 2, the sale of the city-owned land to the Minnesota Sports Facility Authority.
Yes, Bob Carlson from Transportation Planning and Engineering will make the presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Reich and committee members. My name is Bob Carlson. I'm with Transportation Planning and Engineering. Dennis Morris, who was originally going to do the presentation, is out with an ear infection and he sends his apologies. Today we've got the proposal to sell property that is owned by the city. The property in question is 2 pieces of land that are associated with the Metropolitan or the Minnesota Sports Facility Authority and the new stadium. And they're a parcel on 4th Street, then a larger parcel on 5th Street. Both of them are currently right away, and the Sports Commission has vacated or petition to vacate those streets, and those have been passed by the Planning Commission, and they'll be in front of the zoning and ZMP, zoning and planning, excuse me, this Thursday for recommendation, or that been recommended to vacate. And once they're vacated, the property then goes back to the underlying fee title owners. And in this case, the city owns the fee title. And under the Land Disposition Act, or policy of the city can then sell that property. And because both parcels are not buildable, we then can sell it to the adjacent property owner, which in this case would be the sports facility. And there are two things that we need to do that. One is that the property needs to be declared excess property, which the city attorney's office has done that. And the second part is that we need to sell it at market value. To establish market value, we had the property appraised. The first parcel on 4th was appraised at $92,000. And the second parcel along 5th was appraised at $1,480,000. So the total market value is $1,572,000. And this process that we're following is the same process that we would do anywhere within the city. So it's not a special event, but it follows the disposition of property. The money then would go into the city's funds, and there's a string of numbers and places that is on your report where the money would go. And this has been reviewed by a number of people in CPED and others in the city staff. And we are all recommending that the city officials authorize us to do a real estate closing and execute a quitclaim deed to the Minnesota Sports Facilities Authority for the sale price of $1,572,000 and payable to the city fund number 06210. And if there are other questions, I'll try to answer them.
And just to emphasize, this is not the usual process, because usually we find that we're not the underlying property owner when it gets to that part of the
Correct.
process.
Typically, the vast majority of our streets are in what we call a street easement. And when the street's vacated, the property then goes to the adjacent properties, and typically it's split down the middle. But in this particular case, when the football stadium was originally constructed, we acquired the property by fee title, and therefore we are now the underlying fee owners, and therefore we would need to sell it.
Thank you. Councilmember Gordon.
Thank you. So are we required to sell them this land for legally at all?
Pardon me?
Well, okay. I'm wondering if we're legally required to sell them this land or if this is just a decision that we're making to help the stadium be completed.
Are we required legally to sell it to them? I am not sure that we are. I probably would refer this to Robin Hennessy, if I may.
Mr. Chair, committee members, my understanding is that if the city has land that is no longer needed for the original purpose, then the city engineer makes a determination as to whether or not we do in fact need it going forward. And in this situation, presumably the city engineer did make that determination. And at that point, we'd be required to sell it.
If we make that determination?
If the city engineer makes that determination.
That's interesting. So this isn't necessarily for you, but to me, just as kind of a regular person who's trying to be in government for a while, this sort of feels a little bit like it could be a deal reopener. They need some land that we have. The determination about whether or not we need it or not. I know that 5th Street's the ramp from the freeway is apparently going to be closed soon, but right now it isn't closed. I have some particular issues that probably people might be familiar with some of them, but we'll pick one out of the air. Bird safe class. For some reason, we pass resolutions unanimously. Many people are saying, please, Sports Facilities Authority, could you just do this? And they say, no, sorry, we can't do that. We also passed a resolution about when the commons in the park, when we get to, they could have that for game days. And then somehow they came back with a deal saying, we want it for game days, but we need it for the day before the game and the day after the game, and we're increasing the number a lot. So I just wonder if we as a city are leveraging this to maximize the benefit out of that. We also have this issue with the parking ramp that's getting built, that the sports facility authorities also got their fingers into, and we thought we were going to get revenue from the parking, and now we have like a deal that's come back where we are giving away parking to all the people who have the luxury box seats, which I never thought was what the council actually approved. So I'd rather not necessarily just I appreciate the recommendation, and of course I'm not, nobody be Public Works, great work, great report and all that. But I feel like I don't want to just give this the stamp of approval coming through the committee without at least stopping a minute and saying, can we have a little bit of a deeper discussion about some of these other issues? So I don't think I'm going to support it right now, but I'd be interested if any of my colleagues on the committee have any thoughts about if this is an actual spot where we might be able to leverage a little bit more and get a little bit more out of this than the market value of the property.
Well, I think that is the benefit, is the market value of the property, and my understanding that this is not going to be whittled away or renegotiated, that $1.5 million is $1.5 million, and that's what we will receive. Am I correct in that aspect of the transaction?
Mr. Chair, that is correct. The appraised value is the money we will receive.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just, sorry. When that money is received, what fund does that go into? Will that help to repay some debt around this area, or is it appropriate to ask for comment on that?
I understand he's general fund, but perhaps there can be further clarification.
I'm sorry, what is the question?
Where will the money, where does it land once received by the city?
Typically, funds from the sale of city land would go into the property disposition fund.
Okay, so category for category. Any further discussion? Any further questions? Seeing none, I will move the item as presented by staff.
Mr. Chair, this was a noticed public hearing also.
Oh, right. So I will open the public hearing. Did anyone sign in? Okay, no one signed in with the clerk. Does anyone wish to approach? Anyone with approach? Not seeing none, I will close the public hearing and now move the item before us. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Dissenting?
No.
Okay, that carries 4-1. That concludes our public hearing section, and we now can move to our final item, which is a discussion item of the City of Minneapolis Parklet Program.
Even if we delayed it for a couple weeks.
Mr. Chair, the presentation will be made by Mackenzie Turner Bergen and Lacey Shelby.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members. My name is Mackenzie Turner Bargan, and I am the pedestrian planner in Public Works. And I'm here today with my colleague to present to you the Parklet program for 2015.
Mr. Chair and council members, I'm Lacey Shelby. I'm the principal urban designer with the city, and we're excited to share with you some of our work that we've been doing over the past year and then some. We'd like to show you a video that's just a quick video that shows you the construction of a parklet. It's just 30 seconds long, so it should be quick. We worked with the city's communications department to produce this as a time-lapse video to demonstrate how a parklet gets assembled. And voila, you have a new public space. We have a short presentation, and Mackenzie will start us off.
So what you saw there was a parklet. Parklets are temporary spaces in the public right-of-way dedicated for public use. It is an expansion of the existing sidewalk into the roadway designed for the public to relax and enjoy the urban environment.
Parklets achieve many city goals, as including living well, looking at a one Minneapolis, creating great places, and creating opportunities for additional economic activity, and really looking at innovation and best practices.
So just to briefly recap, we wanted to start out with a summary of how the 2014 pilot program went. So last year, we constructed parklets at 3 pilot locations. One of the locations was at Juxtaposition Arts on Emerson Avenue North at West Broadway. A second location is in front of Martin Patrick 3 and Colonial Warehouse in the North Loop neighborhood. So that one's on 3rd Avenue North between Washington and 2nd. And then the third location was Spy House Coffee at Nicollet and 25th. So what we've discovered with the pilot program was that this was, everything was constructed and open for people to enjoy September 15th of last year. It ran for 6 weeks through the end of October. And in that time, we, with our evaluation that we completed with the hosts for those sites, we discovered that we had approximately 1,300 visitors to all of those locations over 6 weeks, which was pretty astounding. In addition to finding out what the visitation was, we also asked some questions on basic maintenance and upkeep for which the hosts were responsible. They all thought it went really well. They did a great job keeping the spaces tidy. They secured the furniture each night, watered the plants, and we had absolutely no instances of vandalism, theft, or anything of any of the portions of the parklet or the furniture that was there. So now we'll move on to the 2015 program.
Both Mackenzie and I are very enthusiastic about what's to come. We've together developed an application manual for community members, residents, neighbors who are interested in developing a parklet of their own. This process mirrors many across the country, which invites individuals to propose potential locations and designs to create additional public spaces in their neighborhoods. This is part of a broader goal that we're working together to investigate of how private investment can occur in the public realm.
So just a few aspects of how this program will work. Some of the guidance on this is for the siting. So specific to that, we're going to start out with the parklets. Kind of the very base filter for this is that it has to be located in a commercial corridor, a community corridor, an activity center, or a commercial node. So these are the areas with kind of supportive complementary activity already happening, but that could be boosted from a parklet being present. So some of the specifics are that we're accounting for is that the structure can't block existing drainage patterns, must be in an unrestricted parking lane, so a place where a vehicle is allowed to be parked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Absolutely no rush hour restrictions, anything like that. On streets with traffic speeds of 30 miles per hour or less. In addition, we can't block any public utilities. So part of that as well will be accommodating any street maintenance or construction projects or capital improvements we have occurring in addition to development, and making sure that we account for that in any given season. Some of the additional design guidelines are that the structures have to have enclosures on 3 sides. That's kind of what we had last year as well. Not kind of, exactly. We had planters along each side that were planted with different hardy Minnesota appropriate plantings. Additional design guidelines and required features are that we, much like you have seen with the pilot structures as well as our bicycle corral program, is that we will have requirements for specific traffic control devices like the reflective flexible delineators at the corners to give that vertical cue that there's something there, in addition to having wheel stops at either end to prevent any parallel parking adjacent vehicles from and giving some buffer space so that nobody bumps into the structures. And in addition, each of these structures moving forward will have a public parklet sign as that which you can see on the screen.
Additional requirements include the platform be designed for the intended use. Also, we're encouraging a range of amenities to be included in the parklets, including seating and planting and that sort of thing. Some other features that we found based on the pilot is that having potentially programmed activities can be a real boost to the parklet program. The goal of this year's program is to hear from a lot of different communities, find a diversity of locations, and to work with them to see what this could potentially become and grow into.
And I think that pretty much wraps it up. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer at this time.
So that's the universal symbol that you approve of this project?
Absolutely.
Any further questions for the presentation? Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank you both so much for all your work on this. I've been harassing Public Works and CPED staff about this for a year, and I think parklets are such an incredible opportunity for our city. As you mentioned, a way for small businesses to contribute private dollars to our public realm. It's a way to enliven local community centers and commercial districts. And really, these small amenities can help transform our urban neighborhoods. And so I just think this is such a great thing for our city to be pursuing. I know you guys both worked so hard on this over the past year, so I just wanted to thank you again.
Councilmember Glidden.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm glad you did the presentation. This was very interesting. One little question is, are the application materials that you designed, are those available? Or when will they be available?
Yes, so the manual that you received today is still a draft, but it's basically our final draft. So we will be getting our final document together and releasing that publicly on the website, on the city's website, I think within the next week here.
Within the next week or so. So, yeah, I just wanted to say, I think having this will be a really great tool now that some businesses feel a little bit more comfortable with the idea. I've actually, there was no, Ward 8 was not a site for any of the pilot projects from this summer or last summer, but I have had some contact from some businesses that are really interested, and I think some businesses too see this as a way to kind of be unique and an attraction, and so I think that's a really positive outcome of this is that because often there are these, back and forth about the parking and is this gonna, what's a business effect gonna be? But I think some businesses are really seeing this as a great opportunity. And I think that you've helped create that, that atmosphere with how the project was run over the last year. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The parklets from last year, the locations, are we going to keep those, and are we going to expand upon in the future, new locations, or are the ones from last year not going to be there anymore?
Mr. Chair and Councilmember Yang. So since our pilot program was very truncated compared to what we would have preferred, this year we are looking to put the pilot structures back into their locations that they were in last year. So this year, for those 3 structures that the city owns, this year will kind of be pilot 2.0 of sorts, just to give them a better chance to really get a grasp on it. And so we have confirmed that the structure at Juxtaposition Arts will return this year, and we are still awaiting confirmation to see whether or not the structures will return to Colonial Warehouse location and the Spy House location. I believe at this time that the Colonial Warehouse location has determined that they would like to not have that structure in place this year due to adjacent construction activities that are taking place. But we are awaiting full confirmation on those last 2 sites.
If I may, Also, in addition, there will be additional sites, is what we're anticipating. Those sites will be application-based, and we'll be reviewing them on a case-by-case basis, and they'll be designed and constructed by the partner organization, whereas the pilot program was a city pilot.
Thank you. Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question because, and thank you for your work. I echo my colleagues' thoughts on that. How many applications do you think that parklets could support this year? And how might competing applications be viewed like within a particular block or a business block? Would it be like a first applicant? Would you allow multiple parklets within a block of a commercial corridor, or kind of what are the exclusions, I guess is my question.
Mr. Chair and Council Member Palmisano and Chair, we are expecting several applications, but we're having a pre-application sort of procedure which requires people to fill out a form that goes over the basic requirements, ensuring that they're meeting sort of the minimum requirements, whether it's speed, then specific location as identified in the comprehensive plan in terms of the land use and the adjacent land uses. So we imagine that to cull out a lot of potential locations because we wouldn't want residential sites to sort of come into that piece. However, I would imagine, since we have to also weigh the applicant's capacity to design and construct, that we might see maybe 8 to 15 applications, and then from that, we need to work with each of the community members. But I can't speak directly to how many I think would be our capacity, but we would like to see a distribution. I think based on the projects that we have seen across the country in terms of parklet capacity, probably 1 per block, and being supported by adjacent business uses has been most compatible and successful. Having multiple parklets on a block, I haven't seen across the country, so I think following sort of in their footsteps makes sense for us.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I will echo the thanks for the work. It's certainly a great innovative idea, which has already shown some success in terms of pro-social intentional communities, making a positive presence in our commercial areas. And we will continue to be very engaged, it seems like, with our pilot 2.0. We'll be able to collect data, is my understanding. And then I suppose any new with our first round of sort of the process, the manual applicant-driven process, I will still probably keep pretty close tabs as we launch this out in this way. So with that, I will move to receive and file the report and following presentation. Any further discussion? See none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Dissenting nay. And that concludes our agenda. We are adjourned. Thank you.